All right, this is episode one, bracket coverage. I'm Danny Mez. I'm here with Ryan. Double coverage on all the current topics, going on, NFL, basketball, whatever's going on, we're covering it. So, again, I'm Danny Mez. I'm in Philly right now talking to Ryan, who's currently in Jersey.
I love New Jersey. My favorite place in the world.
Honestly, if your state doesn't have a good bagel, I don't want to hear.
I'm constantly impressed by the amount of people that despise New Jersey.
Whatever, they don't know.
They
They
don't
hate
know
us
about
because
it.
they ain't us. I'm like,
That's facts. I can't imagine life without a Wawa.
yeah, real. I'm so happy, Philly. Nobody loves Wawa more than me, but Philly, they love Wawa. Jumping in, segment one. Are you ready, Ryan?
I'm as locked as I'll ever be.
We're jumping into JJ McCarthy because obviously he just won the national championship with Michigan and gets drafted by the Minnesota Vikings, who just let their franchise quarterback Kirk Cousins walk. And the whole Kirk Cousins thing has been a huge ordeal between the Vikings and whatever the Falcons are doing. And in preseason, which is now, JJ McCarthy tears his meniscus and he is done for the season. He will not play his rookie season, at least not this year. And Vikings have now signed quarterback Matt Corral. So, just background on McCarthy. He's, like I said, just won the Natty his junior year. He played 15 games, 72% passing, and he threw for 209 or 2,991 yards. His touchdown interception ratio was 22-4. Pretty good stuff, but the Vikings are going to have to wait another year to have him. In the Natty, he was 10 for 18, threw for 140 yards, and he had 31 rush yards, 4 attempts. So pretty good game from JJ. But now without JJ McCarthy this season, the Vikings are kind of in a weird spot. Like I said, just like Kirk Cousins walk. And now they're kind of in limbo right now. So I was wondering what you thought about that.
I would say the Vikings are in an interesting position when it comes to determining if they are competing or tanking again. They're not that they necessarily tanked this last season. They loaded up in free agency. They clearly want to compete, and they improved as the season went on last year with a disastrous quarterback rotation. The Pastronaut Josh Dobbs had everyone's
My
attention
goat.
for 5 weeks. Um, the quarterback is Sam Darnold now. I don't mind the process of shutting McCarthy down for the whole year, regardless of the timeline of a meniscus repair. Um, it's he probably could come back at some point during the season. Shutting him down at this point, I'm comfortable with. He's a super young prospect. He showed a lot at Michigan for not really having opportunity. Like when he had the opportunity to make a play on third and long, he made it. It didn't happen often. It happened maybe a few times a game, but he's a talented player. The athletic traits are there. I'm excited for JJ McCarthy. I don't mind the move to shut him down. And Minnesota, I am interested to see the direction they go. I almost think they're going to play it by ear as the season goes on.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the thing with McCarthy, I think just throwing him in there late in the season would it could end up as a disaster. And I think it's better off to just scrap this year, come back next year, you know, take your time, be healthy, because the worst thing that you could do is throw him into a bad situation and then rush the timeline or whatever. So I personally really like that they're going to just shut him down for the year. Don't even worry about it this year. That's a future thing. You talked about the direction that the Vikings are going to go in from here, um, and it's interesting to see because right now you have one of the best, if not the best, wide receiver in the league with Justin Jefferson. And as far as like even someone who has been fantasy football, how do you feel his usage will be? How do you think he'll do with, let's say, Sam Darnold throwing him the ball?
He's the same guy no matter what. He's the same guy no matter who his quarterback is. He's the same guy no matter how injured he is. He had 1,000 yards in 10 games last year. Um, he's a freak. He's the best receiver in the league. I don't know if it's close. And the receivers in the league nowadays are ridiculous.
Hmm.
Um, he's the same guy. I don't think his production will dip. I'm interested to see. You talked about throwing McCarthy in with the Wolves when he's injured at the end of the year. I was interested to see the Vikings process as the season went on with the Darnold McCarthy situation because of situations for rookie quarterbacks. The Vikings are one of the better ones you could have had. McCarthy's got one of the better offensive coaches. He's got one of the best tackle duos in the league. Addison and Jefferson are an elite duo. You got TJ Hawkinson. You signed Aaron Jones. The situation is good. The team can be competitive. My thought was if Sam Darnold is a problem, but your team is competitive, maybe you trade for somebody. I don't think Jaron Hall is the guy either, although he might be a little better than Sam Darnold if you want to try playing him at some point. My fun thought on this was hear me out. Jameis Winston for 1 year.
It's not the craziest thing I've ever heard. I wouldn't mind it. I'm a big Jameis Winston guy. You got to eat the W sometimes.
I mean, he threw for 5,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, and 30 picks with Mike Evans. Why not let him do it with Justin Jefferson?
Let's hear the interceptions on that.
Let's let him do it with Justin Jefferson. Like, give the Vikings fans at least something to look forward to every weekend, please.
He's entertaining. I'll say
yeah.
Jameis Winston. He's not the quarterback that's going to lead you to a Super Bowl, but he's the quarterback that you're like, you know what? He's a fun guy to go out there on Sunday and you just watch him play.
If they're good enough to be competitive, I don't think Jameis Winston is going to be the reason you turn to be uncompetitive. Like,
yeah,
if Sam Darnold is fine, borderline bad, and your team as a whole is performing pretty well, which they addressed a lot of things defensively as well. I mean, he's the guy I noticed. I kind of had circled. I heard rumors of Derek Carr. I hate that. Please don't do that.
I don't. I pray that they don't.
My
thing from an entertainment, from like a standpoint of a Vikings fan, it's an entertainment. I'm going to look forward to watching Jameis Winston, lead the team out there. Sam Darnold, I feel like, all right. It's not going to get me juiced for Sunday. I'm not going to be excited to watch Sam Darnold lead the team out the tunnel. At least for me, I think that Jameis Winston brings an entertainment factor, even beyond football. I think he's just a fun guy. I think he's an entertainer. I think he's great at what he does. And what he does is throw interceptions. Yeah. So, I mean, you take what you can get. There's a trade-off there.
I mean, in terms of backups in the league, he's easily one of the better ones. And I know Cleveland could definitely use him. But I have dreams of him just throwing it 60 yards down the field to Justin Jefferson like 10 times a game.
Justin Jefferson somewhere down there somewhere. Just toss it up. Play ball, boys.
There's no one with a better mentality like that than Jameis Winston in the league.
I had a pretty fun thought as we wrap up the whole Vikings talk. Weird connection. This is kind of a reach. But, I talked about Kirk Cousins walking. He signs with the Atlanta Falcons. And then who did J.J. McCarthy just beat in the national championship? Quarterback.
Oh, Quinn Ewers. No, Penix. What am I saying?
Oh my goodness! What
am I saying?
Oh my god!
What am I saying?
First episode.
That is tragic. Oh my god!
You were the last person I would think would slip up on that.
Wow! I can't believe I just said that.
Yeah, dude, editing skills, man. It's a wonderful thing.
Jesus, that's staying in, by the way.
We got to keep it in. It's the first episode. We get some bumps.
Oh my god! Wow.
We roll with the punches.
Wow.
Michael Penix lost in the national championship game to J.J. McCarthy. Kirk Cousins signs with Atlanta, and Atlanta goes and drafts Michael Penix Jr. Makes no sense. End of the day, we won't stick on that too much, but it makes no sense at all. I just thought that was a weird connection between the Falcons and the Vikings, between Kirk Cousins and the two quarterbacks from this last national championship game. That's my little nugget between those two. But on that note, we're going to move on. We're going to talk about some older players now. We're just talking about a couple rookies. We're going to shift over to Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick, Temple University legend. We love you. Philly still loves Hassan Reddick. I'm speaking for Philly right now. If anyone in Philly disagrees with me, that sucks because Philly misses Hassan Reddick. I miss Hassan Reddick. And he was traded to the Jets for a 2026 third round pick. So it's also a conditional pick, which could become a second, but that's not the topic at hand. So he gets traded to the Jets, and he's looking for a new contract. Jets knew that going into it, but I didn't think they expected to be stuck in this stalemate going into week 3 of the preseason. And he's threatening to hold out, and I honestly could see a situation pan out where he doesn't play at all this season and just sits the whole year. So I was wondering what you thought about the Hassan Reddick situation going on in East Rutherford.
I think the holdout is very possible. I would be kind of surprised for a 29-year-old edge rusher, one of the best in the league, to do that at this point in his career. The situation is super unfortunate. I think it's a bad look for both of them at the end of the day. I'm very unimpressed with the Jets front office in diagnosing this situation and moving forward. They kind of need Hassan Reddick, like bad. Robert Saleh, since his time with the 49ers, he brought over to the Jets. He utilizes a deep edge rotation, and without Hassan Reddick, they don't have that caliber of player on the defensive line that you can constantly rotate in and out on the edge. It's slightly concerning if I was a Jets fan from a personnel standpoint. You have Will McDonald, who is looking to step into a starting role for the first time in his career. And you have Jermaine Johnson, who is also looking to do the same. He started playing more last year. He's pretty solid in that role, but it's a super important part of his defense. And Hassan Reddick has been super efficient rushing the quarterback his last 4 years of his career after a slow start, kind of figuring out what position he was really playing. 12 and a half sacks with Arizona, 11 sacks with Carolina, 16 sacks with Jonathan Gannon and Philly in 2022, and 11 sacks this past season, only playing 74% of the snaps. Hassan Reddick is one of the most efficient pass rushers in the league. He still has juice off the edge. He is in the last year of his $45 million deal he signed with Philly. I expect this to end with him not playing for the Jets ever.
I agree. I don't think he's ever going to put on that uniform. And another thing that I wanted to just throw in there, Jets just lost Huff, who was, a very good linebacker as well, who just signed with the Eagles. Kind of, it almost like is like an addition to the trade. I feel like it's an important piece of
Absolutely.
context to give
Yeah.
that he just signed with the Eagles. Eagles replace Hassan Reddick pretty well. Of course, they kind of play different roles as far as how often they're used and the amount of snaps that they play. But I think Huff will transition perfectly. I think Vic Fangio will know how to use him. And it just puts a little more pressure onto the Jets. And right now, the Jets are in a spot where they are the laughing stock of the league because of how this is played out. You trade for a guy, you give up a third, maybe second round pick in 2026, and you can't even get him to suit up. In addition, you just lost your other edge rusher to the team that you just got this one from. It just is. It's a bad look for the Jets. I agree. It would be really bad for Hassan Reddick to not play this year. Especially given his age, your prime is only so long. So to kind of put a big year like this in jeopardy, it could be concerning the deeper into the season that we go.
I'm intrigued to see how long this ends up playing out because we've gotten hints of holdouts and significant ones throughout the league. I think it's more common with offensive players. I think that's kind of a given.
Yeah.
I have some potential landing spots for Hassan Reddick. This could be via trade. This could be via just free agency if they release
Yeah,
him.
yeah.
Um, my number one landing spot is the Cardinals. The Jonathan Gannon connection is too much for me, and the Cardinals are deficient on the edge in a bad way. They just lost second-year player B.J. Ojolari for the year. He was solid in his role last year, and they're expecting him to take a jump. They have holes on their team that they're anticipating a jump in production from young talent that they brought in. And I think the pairing is too good. I think the Cardinals are better than a lot of people are giving them credit for, and they can compete now. And I think pressure is a super important part of that. Their front is not great, especially on the edge. I think pairing him with Jonathan Gannon once again would be a super smart move for Arizona. I would like it a lot, and I think they could compete for that division. Maybe not win it, but maybe for a wild card spot. They're a
Definitely
pretty
one
good
of the
team.
toughest divisions in the entire league, top to bottom.
Absolutely.
Everybody can compete week in, week out. And I mean, we both know, there's been talks about Hassan Reddick maybe coming back to Philly from Philly. He went to Temple, drafted in Philly. It it kind of makes sense, but it kind of doesn't at this point. Philly doesn't really need him too much, and they got the replacement in Huff, and it might not even make sense for him. You know, it, you wanted he didn't really want out of Philly that much. He just wanted a restructured contract, whereas in New York he wants to leave. Um, so I think you're right. I think with Gannon, he was there for the Super Bowl run, and I think they match up perfectly. He knows how to use him. He knows how he plays. The familiarity is just that trumps almost anything. Um, but you had a couple more teams, so I wanted to hear about.
My next one on the list was the Bears. I think this one's kind of a given. They've been shopping around for edge help since they traded for Montez Sweat. They got some young interior defensive linemen. Gervon Dexter's looked really good for them. We know how efficient Sweat was last year. They still need that other edge spot bad.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if this would be. I think they would probably put value out on the line to get Reddick. I think they would trade for him if they could. They were obviously involved in the Matt Judon sweepstakes, and ultimately he picked Atlanta over Chicago. Chicago's a really talented team, and they're looking really good right now. And pairing another very productive edge with Montez Sweat on that front would make Chicago a very scary team. Um, Third team, other team that made a lot of sense to me. Maybe not cap wise, you'd kind of have to work out some things here. But the Ravens are also lacking edge depth and higher end talent there. The Ravens do it every year. They bring in guys, they bring in veteran guys, and they utilize them. They produce Kyle Van Noy, Jadeveon Clowney, older veterans,
Mhm.
washed up considered by many
Some
people.
would say.
Yeah, and they're productive. Kyle Van Noy had like 9 sacks last year. I think Jadeveon
Uh-huh.
Clowney was around there as well. They're pretty light on edge depth. They're very young there as well. Hassan Reddick in that group with Justin Matabike and the other interior defensive linemen. I think he fits pretty well there. I think they could use the help.
And
Those are my top three.
I think it would be a good fit with him in the Ravens too, because of course, Philly has been a contender, but in a similar way, just different conference. Baltimore has been a pretty consistent contender. I think if you have when you have Lamar Jackson throwing the football, you're a contender.
I think
I
that's
think
one of the
he's
most important things of this as well. He's not going to a bad team.
exactly, which the Jets tough to gauge because of Aaron Rodgers' injury last year. Could be a contender, or they could just completely flop.
Right.
It's tough to call, but I really like your list. And you mentioned Atlanta with Judon. So he was just traded from the Patriots to the Falcons. The Patriots got a 2025 third rounder, and Atlanta got Judon, who had 4 sacks in 2023. But before that, he recorded 12 and a half sacks in 2021 and 15 and a half in 2022. Very productive player, very talented, and I think will have an impact in Atlanta.
I saw a stat. Well documented. Atlanta's pass rush has been the last couple years because of how historically bad it has been. They had 39 sacks in that 21 to 22 stretch.
Hmm.
Judon had 28. So the juice is needed, the
Uh-huh.
production is needed. I am a huge fan of Atlanta's front seven right now. You bring in Judon. You still have Arnold Ebiketie, who was a second round pick a couple years ago. You still have Zach Harrison, who was your third round pick this before this previous draft. You invested heavily after you picked Michael Penix. You invested heavily in the defensive line with Aruka Rororo and Brandon Dorless, who I think will be super productive players. You still have Grady Jarrett in the room. They needed help on the front seven. They found it. I think as a group, the front seven looks much improved, and the defense looks good. They also signed Justin Simmons, which I know is not Matt Judon, different
Hmm.
position group, but former All Pro, pretty significant. They have star power on defense. You need pass rush to make your defense go, and they finally have some juice on the edge.
And I think it could give them, a sliver of a chance in the NFC South because that's such an interesting division to me. Because it's like no one in the NFC South to me is a true championship contender,
Yeah, no way.
but someone's got to go to the playoffs.
Right.
So I think it could be competitive, almost in the way the AFC North is competitive, where like you don't have to be the best. You don't have to be a juggernaut, but if you stay in contention for the division, you know,
Right.
come week 16, 17, you could be looking at an interesting scenario.
100%. I don't think any of these teams in that division are good enough to run away with it. In an ideal world, I think the Falcons probably do. I think from a roster construction standpoint, they are ahead of Tampa Bay. They are ahead of the Panthers. The Saints are pretty far behind at this point, in my opinion. Uh, I like what Carolina did actually. Not to get off track here, but they're
Yeah,
they're investing in Bryce Young. I like the foundation they built there. Dave Canales coming in from Tampa Bay, trying to fix Bryce Young. Not that he's broken, but his situation was broken.
yeah,
I'm kind of excited for Carolina. They kind of look like a fun team. I'd look out for them honestly to push Atlanta a little bit and Tampa Bay.
I agree. And you mentioned the hype with Bryce Young. I think it's been interesting. We've talked about other quarterbacks that, this year, like CJ Stroud going into his second year, it's kind of tough to gauge the hype. But we're going to stick with some rookies. I want to hear for fantasy this year. Who are some rookies that you are looking at? I know that there's one that you wanted to go to Atlanta. So we could jump right into that if you want.
I'll hold that off for now. I'll go position group by position group. I think it's a given. Caleb Williams is going to be one of the highest drafted quarterbacks. Period. He's easily going to be the best rookie quarterback in terms of fantasy production. His rushing numbers might be leave a little to be desired. I don't think that's a big deal. He's got a litany of weapons. They signed DeAndre Swift, traded for Keenan Allen. They brought in Gerald Everett with Colt Kmet. They improved the offensive line. He is a freak of nature when it comes to playing the quarterback position. Um, the table is set for him. The only concern is Matt Eberflus's offense with Shane
Mhm.
Waldron coming in. There have been some complaints from Bears fans already out of the preseason with some of the play calls. Caleb Williams makes stuff happen. I expect nothing less from him in the NFL consistently. The other guy I would mention, obviously, Jaden Daniels announced the starter officially today.
Today, yeah,
He,
I was gonna mention him,
yeah,
ASU legend. Shout out Tempe, Arizona.
Jaden Daniels.
I'll never get over that video of him emptying his locker.
Oh, I
And
remember
then he
this. I
and
remember
then
this.
he transfers to LSU. Everyone's calling him trash. Goes to LSU, wins the Heisman, and everyone lives happily ever after. Unless you live in Tempe, Arizona, then you don't. You never get that.
Former
But yeah,
teammates with Brandon Ayuk, by the way.
that actually is true. Yeah, you're right. Good comms, good comms. I like that. I like that call out. I like Jaden McDaniels or Jaden Daniels. I don't know why I threw Nick in there. Um,
You like 6'9" versatile defensive wings.
You know me. Just completely shift gears.
uh,
Yeah, real. Yeah, that's now I remember. That's exactly why I said McDaniels. Thank you. You just saved me.
All right, before we
Um,
start talking about the NBA,
yeah, let's
running back. This was
let's
a
circle back.
this was a little harder for me. It was not a loaded running back class.
You
The
do love your running back.
I do love running backs.
Big ground and pound guy.
The given is Jonathan Brooks from Texas to Carolina.
Hmm.
Drafted early in the second round, coming off an ACL. He was phenomenal at Texas before he got injured late. I think technically 2 years ago. I think it was the very end of his junior year, maybe a sophomore year. I'm misremembering. I apologize. But he was very productive at Texas in a pretty limited role. And Carolina needs a lead back that, like I mentioned before, they invested heavily in the offensive line. Uh, the other guys I would take a look at is Braylon Allen and Blake Corum, just from the nature of what their role will be with their teams. Corum scored over 20 touchdowns last year and averaged about 4 yards per carry. He is a guy who will find his way into the end zone no matter what. Kyron Williams played 99% of the offensive snaps for the Rams last year. He needs a break, and
Yeah.
he's going to work in between the 20s. When you're in the red zone, Blake Corum will be in and squirming his way into the end zone. So I think he'll be productive from a touchdown standpoint. And I kind of mentioned the same thing with Braylon Allen. Brees Hall is not the best at scoring touchdowns. That's not necessarily a knock on him. Just his physical traits and what he's good at does not really translate to that. The Jets' offensive line doesn't help with that either. But Braylon Allen rocked up, power back. He will find his way into the end zone. He's looked really good in the preseason so far. He's only 20 years old. The dude is a freak of nature. I've been watching Braylon Allen for all 3 years he's been at Wisconsin. I've never not been impressed with him.
You know me. You're the ground and pound guy. I'm a big air raid guy. I want to see quarterbacks just toss it up. Just throw it to the moon. Who's going to be the stud that just goes and grabs it? So for me, I have two wide receivers that I'm looking at. We just mentioned a little bit of basketball, a little bit of 76ers. Do you know who walked out in all 76ers gear?
No, I do not.
Marvin Harrison Jr.
Ah.
Born in Philly, by the way. You know I have to. I can't not do it. Came out in all Sixers gear. Of course, son of an NFL legend. And again, we mentioned the Cardinals. We were kind of highlighting the defense when we were talking about possible landing spots for Hassan Reddick. But I mean the offense. Just just recently, Kyler Murray was in contention for MVP when DeAndre Hopkins was on the team, and they had a hot start that year.
Right.
And a little further back, he won a Heisman Trophy at Oklahoma. So I think people, like you said, are overlooking Arizona. I think their offense can really keep up with some of the other high-powered offenses in the NFL. And I think Marvin Harrison, I just think he's such a stud. I like watching him. I just feel so good about him. Maybe it's because he's from Philly. I don't know what it is, but I just think he is such a stud. And paired with Kyler Murray, I'm very intrigued to see how he does his rookie year, and I'm excited for him. And another wide receiver that I'm more intrigued by, I'm not as confident in, but that's because Daniel Jones is his quarterback, is Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors is in not a terrible spot because he's, again, at the end of the day, he's a great receiver, and if you're open, you're gonna get the ball. But I just think receiving passes from Kyler Murray is not the same as receiving passes from Daniel Jones. And especially, Giants just lost Saquon. That's a big offensive piece that, play action is not a lot less defenses are going to bite on that play action because, to be honest with you, I have no idea who's even running the ball for the Giants. Like,
Devin Singletary.
oh my gosh.
Brian Dable's favorite running back.
I was going to say, I think we were better off when I didn't know who was running the football for the Giants. I mean, Singletary, he's all right. He's good, but he's not Saquon. And I just think Daniel Jones dropping back to pass, if it's Neighbors and any defensive back, which it'll probably be the number one defensive back on any team. When Daniel Jones airs it out, it's more of a 50-50 ball. I just don't like Daniel Jones. I think if anything, Neighbors will, especially in fantasy, he'll put up good numbers. He'll be a good piece to have, but I don't think he'll have a fast start like some other receivers do. But with that being said, that's not something you could predict.
I could gush about the Cardinals. I honestly really love their team this year,
Yeah.
and Marvin Harrison Jr. He is a perfect pairing with the guys they have in that room already. He is exactly what the receiver room was lacking. He's a true X receiver. He is explosive. He's better after the catch than you would expect for a guy that's 6'4", 215.
Mm-hmm.
He's a perfect pairing with Michael Wilson, who was a productive player in his rookie year and another quarterback carousel situation. Trey McBride, one of the best young tight ends in the league, a huge fan
I
of his.
love Trey McBride.
He's
Yeah.
awesome. Also, really good run blocker as well. For their running game was one of the best in the league last year down the stretch. They were very good on the ground. And then Greg the Torch Dortch in the slot, 5'7", training camp legend. This man has been getting so much hype. Huge Greg Dortch fan. They got a pretty good room. I could talk about the
I'm a
Cardinals
fan
for a
of
ton.
anybody that's under 5'8".
Same here.
If you're under if you're under 5'8" and in any major league, you're my hero. Unless your name is Jose Altuve, then I I don't know what to say. I
Just a
hate you,
heads
Jose
up.
Altuve.
If people were questioning why the Cardinals took Max Melton in the second round of the NFL draft, I will tell you it's probably because they were watching a lot of Marvin Harrison Jr. film and they saw he had his two worst career games against Max Melton in the 2 seasons he played. He had 18 yards and 25 yards. He did score 3 touchdowns in those games, but that's kind of beside the point.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to his usual production, it is significant. We consider us a podcast that is high on the Cardinals this next season.
Yeah.
I will quickly touch on Neighbors and the Giants. I'm in the same boat as you. I am low on Malik Neighbors. I will keep it to my dislike of Daniel Jones. The play action point you mentioned is actually important because how did Dable make the Giants a playoff team that won a playoff game 2 years ago? It was play action, it was bootleg, it was rollouts, and it worked with Saquon Barkley in the backfield. And the job of a bootleg and that rollout style of offense is to make the quarterback's job easier. You get a lot of people out of his face. You make misdirection. He knows where the players are going. The defense doesn't. I think the natural inclination of defenses to bite on the play action will be less with Saquon gone. You also mentioned Malik Neighbors' matchup with a number one corner. He was almost purely a slot receiver at LSU, and there's not a lot of teams in the NFL where their number one corner is their nickel corner. So I actually think from a matchup standpoint, Brian Dable will be in the kitchen cooking up Malik Neighbors some devious stuff against maybe the team's third best defensive back consistently. I'm high on his potential from that standpoint. I'm interested to see how his production looks actually when he's catching balls from Daniel Jones. But good shout on both those guys. Two of the top 3 picks in the draft.
Watching him fly over his head, like whatever
Oh
terminology
yeah,
you
I
want to
mean,
use.
he'll
Watching him throw it to the defensive back, like
he'll lead the league in shoulder shrugs and looking at balls land out of bounds.
on that was a fun segment. I like talking about the rookies. I thought this was a really exciting rookie class.
Side note,
But
just so the watchers and listeners can know who we are, I'm the biggest Romo Dunze fan in the world, and I'm upset he's on the Bears.
yeah,
Had to get that in there.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I almost forgot. I meant to bring that back up because that's who I was going to start off talking about. You were really mad that he was not even that he was taken by the Bears, more that he was not taken by Atlanta.
I'm also kind of upset he was taken by the Bears because I don't want to buy a Bears jersey.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough colorway. It's not a
It
cute
is a
color.
rough colorway. I I could get a Washington Huskies Rome Odunze jersey. I'd be comfortable with that.
Yeah.
I watched him. There's kind of every year I pick up an obsession with a certain player in college football. 2 years ago it was Bijan Robinson. How convenient, he's on Atlanta. Um, this past season it was Rome Odunze with Washington. I've never seen a guy with a better reaction in the air, the late hands, the body adjustment, the route running, and Penix could get him the football. He had one of the highest. He might have had the highest contested catch rate in college football last season. He's special in the air. He's special down the field. He's 6'3", 215, elite frame. He's going to be unreal with the Bears. That pairing with Caleb Williams is ridiculous. And needless to say, I think Atlanta could have used him very much this past year or this upcoming
And I mean,
year.
you talked about all the weapons that Chicago has gotten. Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, etc. Caleb Williams, of course. So I think the more the more weapons that you add from Chicago's standpoint, the more potential there is. The potential grows and grows and grows with every addition that they made, because you have the veteran receiver in Keenan Allen, but also you have Rome Odunze, who he's gonna come probably for Rookie of the Year. Like he's gonna. That's
I
what
think
he's
people
gonna
are
want to do.
severely underrating how good he actually is. In my opinion, he comes into the league and he is immediately one of the best contested catchers in the league. He is one of the better route runners in the league. His physical traits are certainly above average in this league. People see DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and then Rome Odunze and immediately assume he's wide receiver 3. He's a lot closer to being wide receiver 1 than he is wide receiver 3 on that team.
I will say, I just mentioned Rookie of the Year. I just put up the FanDuel betting odds. Rome Odunze is 13th in the odds for Rookie of the Year at plus 6,000. Number one, take a guess who number one is.
Caleb Williams.
Of course. Plus 120 to win Rookie of the Year. Guess who? Well, guess the top 5 for
Jaden.
Offensive Rookie of the Year. Jaden is second at plus 600. Marvin is third at plus 650. Now 4 and 5.
These are tough ones. Jonathan
I
Brooks.
know. Jonathan Brooks is not even top 10.
Really? I guess he'll be out at the start of the season, I think. That makes sense. Could Joe Alt win Offensive Rookie of the Year?
Joe Alt, he is not listed.
Man, no love for the offensive lineman. Damn.
Hate to see it, man.
I think I'm going to have to tap out. I'm going to be guessing forever.
There's one quarterback and one other wide receiver in the top 5.
Neighbors
is 5th, plus 1,500. And 4th
is Bo Nix 4th?
Bo Nix is 4th at plus 1,300.
God, the quarterback bias is painful.
Is insane.
I'm not even that low on Bo Nix either.
I was going to say, I'm intrigued by Bo Nix because I like my Oregon quarterbacks.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would personally put Neighbors over Bo Nix. But I mean, you got 1 through 3. That was pretty good. Applause.
I know my betting odds.
he knows his fans well. He frequents. He dabbles here and there.
I do dabble.
Switching topics. Now that we're on the same page of predicting this year, we're going to talk about who do you have number 1 seed in each division. Do you want to start us off, or do you want me to?
We kind of touched on this off the air. We kind of have a consensus last place in the division, which I kind of just wanted to clear up, because when we were going through this exercise and I'm picking my division winners, every single time I would go through a division, I'm like, second and third place could really switch any way here, and it kind of made it uninteresting for me to pick, because I'm like, I can see a scenario where this team is second and this team is third. I think it was a lot easier for me to pick the winners and the last placers, if you will. Yeah.
So let's, because I had fun doing it the first time, so why not do it again? We're going to go through every division and give our 4th place. NFC East, Giants.
Yep.
NFC North, Vikings.
Yep.
NFC South, Saints. And I think this is where we differed. NFC West, I had the Seahawks.
I had the Cardinals, and it's not because I don't think the Cardinals are good. This is like crazy. They're catching me in a lie. They think I'm a hypocrite. Uh, I just
You
said I was a
said
fan of the
5 minutes
Cardinals.
ago that we're
Yeah.
high on them.
They could be 8-9 and be last place in that division, and I think that's entirely
Yeah,
realistic.
yeah,
I think this is the most reasonable place to disagree. I think hands down this is the best division in football.
yeah. I
Um,
agree.
I understand concerns for Seattle. Uh, I understand concerns with Arizona, and I think Arizona probably from a roster construction standpoint and maybe a coaching standpoint, although I think people are more in on Jonathan Gannon at this point than they are out. Um, I would see the concerns there. That's why I put Arizona last. I understand the skepticism on the Seahawks because they were pretty disappointing last year.
They had their moments, I would say. The Seahawks had their moments where they were good, and like, I mean, of course, I hate to bring it up, but that win against the Eagles was a big moment for the Seahawks. But then again, that was not their whole season. So they're kind of in a tough spot in a very tough division where I think they're a good team, not a great team. And I think because of that, they're going to be the fourth in the division, which is very unfortunate because if you throw them in the NFC South, they're a 1 seed.
Oh yeah.
So it's just really unfortunate for them. But moving on to the AFC, who did you have in fourth in the AFC East?
The Patriots.
Me too. AFC North, who did you have fourth?
I had the Steelers.
That's where we disagreed.
But yeah,
I had
this is our
I
one legitimate disagreement.
yeah, I had the Browns, which might just be I don't like Deshaun Watson.
I'm
I
in
don't
on
think
that.
anyone really likes Deshaun
Yeah,
Watson.
I'm in on that take.
So maybe I'm just biased, overly biased. But I think our disagreement is more of, can Russell Wilson lead a team? Justin Fields probably can't, but I still don't think that that's a bad situation either way.
I
And I
am
think
my bad.
I think personally that Brandon Ayuk is going to be on that team
Probably.
by the trade deadline. And I think that's an important factor because Brandon Ayuk brings a lot. He's another huge weapon to add. And I think people are they're really low on that quarterback room, whereas I'm high. So maybe I'm overconfident in the quarterback room, but I think they can have a better season than the Browns. The only concerning part for me with that take is that I really like Njoku, who is he's probably my favorite tight
Jersey
end in the
guy,
league.
David
He is a
Njoku.
Jersey guy, exactly.
I with the Steelers, I will say this: if Arthur Smith has no haters, I am dead. I despise Arthur Smith. I actually like what they did in this offseason, personnel wise. They have a really good outlook on the offensive line, but projecting offensive line play is not a great thing to do when you're probably starting two, maybe three rookies on the line. You got second year Broderick Jones as well. The only vet that you're looking at is James Daniels, who's a good player. He's fine. Um, I the defense will always be good. Mike Tomlin will always have a competitive team. The offense is alarming. Um, George Pickens, I think, could probably be a number one receiver on a team. I am one of the biggest Jalen Warren fans out there. Uh, I'm not high on the quarterback room. I'm not high on the other receivers, and I am in the basement. I'm below whatever the basement is on Arthur Smith. So I think for that reason, I'm low on the Steelers, and for the coaching, the talent, and not the quarterback situation, I'm high on the Browns.
That's fair. I think that's fair, and I think you know we both agree that this is the Ravens' division to lose,
Yeah.
and I think it's a pretty tough division, and for me, it's really tough to call when Mike Tomlin's your coach. I just think he's one of the
Yeah.
best coaches, future Hall of Famer. He really is one of the best coaches I've ever seen.
Is it crazy for me to think that Jake Browning could lead a team to the playoffs?
I've heard crazier things. There's this guy called his name is Nick Foles who won a Super Bowl against probably the greatest quarterback of all time. I think that immediately leads me to not doubt any obscure quarterback.
Does Jake Browning lead the Eagles to that Super Bowl? Is he better than Nick Foles?
He's not yet. I can't call that.
I every backup quarterback has this honeymoon phase where we think they're good. We're like, that guy could start on an NFL team.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
You didn't think Jake Browning was good last year?
I thought he was good.
Did you think Josh Dobbs was an NFL starter?
Yeah, I did.
Okay, I don't know how. I don't know. I was gonna say I don't know how you could be out on Jake Browning if you're in on Josh Dobbs, but Josh Dobbs was a spectacle for 7 weeks of the season.
Bro, the Pastronaut. Are you kidding me? I would say like a great example of what you said for me all time is Fitzmagic.
He was different.
Prime Fitzmagic. That's when he was with was it Deshaun Jackson that was on that team where he gave him the chains and stuff?
Oh yeah, he was on the Bucks. I think Deshaun Jackson and Ryan Fitzpatrick were on the Bucks.
Yeah, and I love Deshaun Jackson for obvious reasons.
Oh my God, there will never be another player like Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, him and Tavon Austin have a special place in my heart. I'll just sit there and watch highlights and just cry.
We've magically not talked about the division winners yet.
Magically, yeah. In due time. Let's keep it pushing. Matter of fact, who do you have fourth place NFC South?
AFC South.
Damn it.
You're good.
AFC South. Yes.
I had the Titans.
Me too. And AFC West, who's in last?
I put the Broncos.
Yeah, sadly, the Broncos will be fourth. Now let's get to the winners. 1 seeds. Who's making the playoffs? I have the Eagles winning the East, Packers winning the North,
Agree.
Bucks winning the South,
Disagree.
and Niners winning the West.
Agree.
All right. So who do you have taking the NFC South?
I have the Falcons. I think they find significantly improved coaching on both sides of the ball. Pure talent on paper, they supersede the Bucks at this point.
Yeah.
The Bucks lost a lot on the coaching staff. Dave Canales ignited Baker Mayfield to that resurgence last year. Mike Evans is still that guy. The offensive line is still a question mark to me. I like Rashad White, but he wasn't super productive last year. The defense is interesting. They have about 5 of the same kind of player. They have 5 nickelbacks, like star players. I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to run dime every single play and run like 2 mini linebackers on the field with Levante David. It's going to be the most interesting defense you've ever seen in your life. Christian Izzy and Tyke Smith, I'm excited for those guys. I'm not the biggest fan of the makeup of their defense at this point. I don't entirely see it with the Bucks.
I get that. And like I said, my thing with the NFC South is that it's kind of like not who's gonna make the playoffs, but who's gonna squeak in, who's gonna be invited to Wild Card Weekend.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good chance this division winner has, I was gonna say 10 wins, maybe even 9 again.
Yeah, it's not the sexiest division, especially in the NFC.
Has consistently been bad since that Atlanta Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Since the Carolina and Atlanta Super Bowl,
I was gonna say
it's been like one good team every year, and the last couple of years there hasn't even been one good team.
I mean,
the Bucks were good last year, but
we talked about Cam Newton just us a little earlier. Julio Jones,
icons.
What I'd give to watch prime Julio Jones again.
Man.
Oh my God. We'll put him on the list with Deshaun Jackson and Tavon Austin. Prime Julio Jones, bro. Oh my God.
Different.
Moving to the AFC. AFC East. Who
Dolphins.
You got? Me too. AFC North.
Ravens.
Me too. AFC South.
Texans.
Me too. And AFC West.
I mean, this is the most slam dunk one.
I was gonna say.
imaginable. I'm not even gonna say their name.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even. I'm not tall enough to dunk, so I'll say this is a layup. The Kansas City Chiefs.
Hey, I can touch rim. Believe in yourself.
I can like sit on my friend's shoulders and maybe reach.
Yeah, that's honestly true. We got to
Maybe if
try
I
that
sit
one
on
day.
like Joel Embiid's shoulders, I can reach.
Or if you're just Victor Wembanyama.
He's insane. But we're gonna go into Super Bowl prediction, and I want you to start us off.
I hate that you know that I hate you. You know that I absolutely despise these picks, so you're making me go first so we don't have to talk about it. And honestly, I do appreciate that though. All right, my Super Bowl picks. Um AFC, the Chiefs are the Chiefs. I have them going to the championship game and losing because I don't think a team will three-peat. I don't think a team will even appear in the Super Bowl 3 times in a row. I have them losing to the Texans. The Texans fell short last year against Baltimore. Their emphasis on improving, not even holes necessarily, but improving already strong position groups and elevating them like as early as they are into the rebuild is impressive. They continue to flip players on defense. They bring in Aziz Al-Shire, who was excellent last year. He's been with D'Amico Ryans in San Francisco. Shout out Aziz Al-Shire. I really like the Texans. I really like their coaching. I think they will find a way to get the better of Patrick Mahomes. And then the NFC, I have.
Wait, before you jump into that, because before my notes from before we even talked, we actually talked about it earlier. It's funny that I had this in my notes because the Packers and Texans strike me as two teams that have the young quarterbacks that have a lot of hype, and I think CJ
Yes.
Stroud's hype is a little more warranted.
Oh yeah.
But Jordan Love also has a lot of hype around him because of how his season ended. Um, and to me, I'm buying into the hype. I like both of them as quarterbacks, but I don't know how much I'm ready to invest into them. I don't know if I'm really buying a Super Bowl campaign from Packers Texans. Texans, you could maybe get me a little bit on the hook because again, the offense is amazing. I love their offense. Him and Nico Collins, but I just put him on the same train where I don't know where to put him, and you put him at the pinnacle of the sport. And I kind of like that. I like that because I think that shows, the polarizing effect that, the kind of, I'm going to call it recency bias, but I don't want to call it that.
Yeah.
But, the way the seasons ended for both of them, it leaves a lot of people on the edge of their seats waiting to watch them again. And I like that we have that polarizing effect right here. You're buying into it, and I'm still kind of cautious on it.
You completely snitched on my Super Bowl pick too.
I totally did, and I didn't want to, and then I started talking, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna just
Yeah,
out the NFC.
I was so distraught isn't the right word, but I was so like disinterested in making this pick because I couldn't do it. It was so painful. I love so many of these teams. There's a lot of very young talent in the league right now. So my NFC Championship game was the 49ers and Packers. The Packers should have won at San Francisco last year and they didn't. So I have them beating the 49ers and going to the Super Bowl. The thing that I ended up doing research on because I couldn't rack my head around these championship games or actually predicting an accurate Super Bowl. Jordan Love and CJ Stroud would combine for the youngest age of quarterbacks starting in a Super Bowl ever at 49. And my Super Bowl MVP would be CJ Stroud with the Texans winning.
I like that. And another thing you said, building up this Super Bowl or this prediction, is that you don't think the Chiefs will make it to the Super Bowl because people don't three-peat and people don't make it to 3 Super Bowls in a row. But that's not true. And what happened? So I think the Chiefs will make the Super Bowl again. But what happened the last time a team tried to three-peat, Ryan?
I don't remember.
The New England Patriots looking for their third straight Super Bowl,
Oh, you're right.
playing against the Philadelphia Eagles.
My head went to the Bills for some reason, and I was like, but they lost all four.
You're killing me, bro. You're killing me. You're actually killing me.
It's like,
So,
what other dynasty exists?
I think just like that, just like last time, the Eagles will put an end to another three-peat. Because think about it too. Before 2017, the last time Eagles were in a Super Bowl, they lost to the Patriots. So this year, Eagles go to the Super Bowl. Last time they were in the Super Bowl, they lost to the Chiefs.
Ah, fun little
Get the
connection.
revenge.
Yep.
Stop the three-peat. I think, history repeats itself.
It tends to
am
do
I
that.
biased? Am I biased? No. Why would I be biased? But I'm just saying. I'm just kind of throwing ideas out there.
Who's your non-Jalen Hurts Super Bowl MVP?
A part of me is inclined to say Saquon. Another part of me is inclined to say AJ Brown. But ponder this. Think about it. Carson Wentz got injured. What if Kenny Pickett leads the Philadelphia Eagles to a Super Bowl?
I cannot stand that you even had the audacity to mention that.
It's satire. It's satire. That's not happening. I'm not campaigning for a Kenny Pickett Super Bowl MVP.
I'm not campaigning for Kenny Pickett to be on an NFL roster.
Yeah, I mean, but he did the fake slide one time. It was pretty cool.
Oh my god!
He did the fake slide.
He set a precedent and made a college football rule. He did the thing.
He did the thing. He did the thing. Do it again, Kenny. Do it again. No, I
Speaking of college football.
Swinging back.
Oh.
Swinging back. You know what? I'm ready to make the jump. But I will end it off with saying, what would the people do if Devonta Smith, skinny Batman, former Heisman Trophy winner, won Super Bowl MVP?
I actually this was floating in my head when I asked that question. I don't think he would be in contention for it because of the nature of how the Chiefs play defense. I think
that's a good point.
He would be getting. I can't remember exactly. I don't think he had the best game against the Chiefs a couple years ago. I don't exactly remember what his stat line was or how productive he was, but the Chiefs, they do bump. They bump and they don't exactly run. They bump and they jam you into the fucking ground. Like they're as aggressive as they come. They do it consistently. I love Devontae Smith. He's a great player. If I was picking a non-Jalen Hurts Super Bowl MVP, I don't think it would be Devontae Smith.
That's fair. That's a fair point. And I think the two obvious, other than Jalen Hurts, would be either AJ Brown or Saquon. I would say Saquon is probably the second highest, next to Jalen.
Yeah.
Or either that or James Bradbury wins Super Bowl MVP, gets a pick six revenge tour.
If he's on the field during the Super Bowl, for any
I
more
hope
than
he's not,
for any more than 10 snaps, I'd be deeply concerned.
That's what I'm saying. If he touches the field for more than 10 snaps,
you know what would do me right?
Patrick Mahomes wins Super Bowl MVP.
You know what would do me right is Nico Collins Super Bowl MVP. I would be pushing absurd agendas.
Yeah. You would, especially since if that really happens and you predict it, you would.
I'd be insufferable.
I was gonna say you'd be very insufferable. I think I'd have to disband this podcast. I'd have to cancel.
At least it's a few months away.
But again, we did mention college football, and this is I can hear the engines revving in your brain.
Yeah, this is my wheelhouse.
Yeah, you are wired. You are locked in. And I'm going to bring up number 10 ranked FSU facing Georgia Tech.
In Ireland.
Guinness.
The annual game.
Yeah, so I mentioned it. I set the stage. Well, you helped me with the Ireland part. FSU ranked number 10. They are favored minus 455 to win. That's straight. The spread is set at 11.5 for FSU. And the over-under is set at 56.5. The odds percentage-wise for Florida State to win as of right now is 79% per Fox Sports. So I wanted your reaction to those numbers.
I think the spread is reasonable. I think the over under is reasonable, especially early on in the season in college football.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think the I'm not. I know ESPN has like their win percentage system, however
Yeah.
they do it. For Fox Sports, I think 79% for FSU is shooting a little high. I did a decently deep dive into these teams. Um, Many people will know Florida State went undefeated last year and was held out of the college football playoff because of Jordan Travis's injury. Super unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Now they lose 12 skill players to the NFL. They
Yeah.
lose Jordan Travis, running back Trey Benson, wide receivers Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson, tight end Jaheim Bell, linebackers Tatum Bethune and Kalen DeLoach. They lose safety Akeem Dent. They lose top 40 picks Jared Verse and Braden Fisk to the Rams. They lose top 100 picks Renardo Green and Jerry Jones at corner. Um, that is a lot of NFL talent to lose. And in the current landscape of college football, it is easier than ever to replace production. It's also harder than ever to find production that fits and succeeds when you're replacing that sheer amount of talent and players. Um, they brought in DJ Uiagalelei from Oregon State, who kind of went on a little retreat after his heavy criticism that he took at Clemson. He was very good for
Aaron
Oregon
Rodgers
State.
style.
They were very good. Oregon State was very good. He transfers to FSU. He's immediately one of the better quarterbacks in the ACC, one of the better quarterbacks in the country here. They bring in 4 transfers by way of Alabama. They bring in a transfer from Georgia on the defensive line. They bring in a linebacker from Auburn. They bring in another DB from Miami. So a lot of power conference transfers for Florida State. This is how you reload. These are highly recruited guys. These are highly touted guys at their previous schools that just don't really have the opportunity. And they clearly want to come play for Mike Norvell in Florida State. How does, these guys that do not have a history of producing for their schools in their current situations come in and play? That's a big question for me, and that's why I think that this game could be more competitive than some people anticipate. Georgia Tech returns one of the highest percentages of production in the league on their offense. They bring back their quarterback. They bring back their starting running back. They return their top 2 receivers. They return their tight end. They were solid last year. They won their first bowl game in a few seasons. They still have Haynes King, who they brought in from Texas A&M. He had a solid season for them last year. Almost 3,000 yards, almost 40 total touchdowns. Turnovers were not a great thing for him. He had that moment against Miami last year when Miami didn't kneel and then he threw a Hail Mary for the win. Funny situation there for Georgia Tech. They return a 1,000-yard rusher in Jamal Haynes. They return a 700-yard receiver in Eric Singleton and a 500-yard receiver in Malik Rutherford. They also bring in 2 highly touted defensive transfers in the front 7, Romello Height, an edge from USC, and Thomas Gore, a defensive tackle from Miami. They were a very competitive team last year. They knocked off some good teams in the ACC and their non-conference schedule. I think they played Louisville tough, who's in the ACC. I don't know why I'm mentioning Louisville. They lost to Bowling Green last year. That's what I'm thinking of. They played pretty well though. Take my word for it. They had a stretch where they were beating a ranked team and then losing to like Bowling Green and then beating a ranked team and then losing to a bad team. I don't think Georgia Tech will win the game. I think it'll be a competitive game from a sure thing to an unsure thing standpoint. I think Florida State, without question, has better coaching and better talent. In terms of returning production and like, have you seen it before on the field? Georgia Tech has that advantage. That's why I think it'll be more competitive. I think I would take Georgia Tech to cover 11.5. I think maybe they lose like 34-24. That would also be an over, ever so slightly.
Yeah.
Um, I think this game will be fairly competitive. That was kind of my deep dive on both of these teams. I mean, Florida State, when you lose that much production, you have to bring a lot in. They didn't bring in a
Exactly.
lot of known production, but they bring in these highly touted guys from the best power conference teams in the country. I trust Mike Norvell at this point.
So
Give
I
me
have a
Florida State 34-24.
oh, I love their war chant, by the way.
Oh
That
yeah,
is one of the coolest things.
classic.
Was kicking my ass on NCAA. Stadium Pulse was going crazy. But I did want to ask you because you, I don't want to say criticize, but you criticized the 79% chance from Fox Sports. If you could redo the percentage of odds for FSU to win, what percentage would you put it at?
I would lean closer to 60-40.
60-40. Okay.
I There's not a lot of sure things on that Florida State roster.
Mm-hmm.
I talked about production. I should mention Roydell Williams. They brought in at running back. He was decently productive at Alabama as a guy that subbed in with Jace McClellan occasionally. And DJ Uyunglele, obviously one of the top quarterbacks that entered the portal. Quarterback drives the bus at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I'm a little skeptical of the guys they brought in. Any of these transfers I'm mentioning are projected starters from our lads. They do great work. They're usually tapped into the happenings of every team in the country from a depth chart perspective. It's nothing official because college teams don't really release depth charts like that,
Mm-hmm.
like the pros do. But yeah, that's why I mentioned those guys. I think it'll be a good game. It will definitely be a lot better than the game last year. Notre Dame played Navy.
Yeah, that was not a lot of people locked in on that.
No.
But I will ask you one quick question before we switch gears once again. FSU ranked number 10 in the nation. Do you think that ranking will stick 2-3 weeks down the line?
I'd have to take a closer look at their non-conference schedule. I I not I I'm not sold on FSU. I really wish they made the playoff last year. People cite the game. Who did they play in that bowl game? They played Georgia.
I think it was Georgia.
Yeah, they got murdered by Georgia.
Yeah,
Um,
killed.
People cite that game as like, oh, they didn't deserve to get in regardless. I completely disagree. Just off principle, and also all of these guys that just didn't play. Um,
Mm-hmm.
that being said, I don't see that returning at all. There's not really contingency here. Uh, they were an older team last year, not too many moving pieces. That's kind of a complete 180 this upcoming season. They'll be one of the better teams in the ACC. They could definitely win the ACC. They'll be in contention for the 12-team playoff. I'm not completely sold on them as a contender.
Okay, I like it. I like it. Switching gears, as promised, SMU against Nevada. SMU favored very heavily, minus 3,333 to win. That gives them a 94% chance to win. And the spread is 27.5 in favor of SMU, and the over/under is set at 57.
I would hammer the over.
Okay.
I would probably take the spread. I'd probably take SMU to cover.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a lot that needs to go on with Nevada for them to turn that program around. They're coming off a 2-10 season, and when I looked into SMU, I knew about quarterback Preston Stone, who threw for over 3,000 yards last year, almost 10 yards per attempt, 28 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. I knew about him. They returned 3 running backs, all of which ran for over 400 yards last year. The leading rusher being Jalen Knighton with 700. And they returned 7 out of 8 receivers who all had 300 plus receiving yards. I talked about Georgia Tech returning production. My God, SMU is returning an ungodly amount of production.
Mm-hmm.
They're picked 7th in the ACC preseason poll. Their first year in the ACC. clearing top half in that league. I think it's a realistic prediction for them. Uh, they want to air it out. They want to be efficient on offense. Quick pace. That's why they play so many guys. I think this one will get ugly fast. That's why I would take the over and SMU with the spread. I'd maybe go something like 55-14.
Okay, I
SMU.
like it. As we start to wind down, I'm gonna ask you. You mentioned FSU in the ACC. How do you think SMU fares in the ACC?
I don't think they're a contender by any means. Um, I think people will be surprised with SMU as an athletic program, from a football and basketball perspective. Uh, they this is a thing that's not going to happen often. You're going to see a few different teams every single season that return this level of production, and they're going to get a little hype, they're going to get a little talk because you don't see it nowadays with the transfer portal. It doesn't happen. You don't return 95% of your offensive production every day. So they'll be in some games. There's a good chance they could upset one of the higher end teams in the ACC. And I mentioned it with Florida State, with how they're plucking transfers from power conference schools. Nevada brought in a running back, Savion Red from Texas. They brought in a tight end, Andrew Savinea from Florida, and they brought in a wide receiver, Cortez Bram Jr. from West Virginia. So in the reverse, you also see these guys who are recruited at a high-level school that don't quite get the opportunity. Maybe they don't pan out. There could be a litany of reasons. But then they transfer down and they have an opportunity to start and be productive. These are fairly highly touted guys. The tight end from Florida was a 4-star. Savion Red was in conversation in Texas' backfield. They honestly could probably use him now because they've lost 2 running backs to season-ending injuries already. And Cortez Bram didn't really get much run at West Virginia, but that's kind of the reverse effect you find, inverse effect you find with the transfer portal as well. It ultimately works both ways, and that's good for the athletes. But there's a major renovation that needs to go on in Reno, in Nevada.
Oh my
That
God.
was a terrible joke. Shout out Bangle on YouTube if you guys watch him and his college football 25 dynasty.
Oh my God.
I needed to say it. I couldn't not say it. I'm sorry.
We're canceling the episode. It's done.
I got to outro us. Damn.
I know. No. We're winding it down. We're not just cutting it right there. Trust me. On the topic of ACC teams, Virginia Tech, you might be over there.
I will be in Blacksburg September 21st.
Exciting stuff. Very exciting. I mean, what else is there to say? Football's back. I mean, there's not.
We're locked in for however many weeks. I should know the number off the top of my head, but I don't.
You're washed. You're 0 for 2 right now with me.
I'm a terrible college football fan.
This guy, unbelievable. Football's coming back, and I know you're kind of indifferent to it, but baseball lovers, October's coming. Red October's coming. The Phils are coming. I'm excited.
I will root on the Phillies from this far away.
Arms reach. Well, Heisman.
Oh yeah.
But it's an exciting time for sports. Any time. October.
That's the best time of the year.
September, October for me.
Oof.
Nothing beats it. That's just prime time for me.
I'm a little later. I'm like October,
you're a December
November.
guy?
I'm in maybe December, maybe a little December. The holidays do something to me.
I was gonna say I like the Christmas games.
I also college basketball is my favorite thing in the world, so
that's fair. I'll give it to you. Yeah, that's fair.
Gotta lean to the college basketball
because then at that point you got a little bit of everything going on November, December. I see the vision. I see what's going on because I mean in addition to that too, you got college basketball, college football, you have NFL, you have NBA, you have NHL. There's a lot going on come December. But I mean, that's gonna wrap it up for today. You thought it was a very successful first episode. I had a lot of fun doing it. A lot of time went into planning all of this. It finally came together. Thank you mostly to Ryan. Ryan put a lot of work in to produce this. I'm just the pretty face.
My gorgeous host, Danny. I appreciate the kind words. Yeah, this is actually a decently long time coming. I think we've kind of been talking about this for a few years at this point.
The idea's been thrown
Um,
around for a very long
yeah,
time.
happy to finally commit to it and get this going. Uh, for the outros, there will be a weekly tradition of announcing a ranking. Just it could be absolutely anything. I think eventually we will make it random. It will so we'll like alternate. Like one week I will announce what we're ranking at the end of the episode, unbeknownst to Danny, and then he will do the same the next week. It could be it could be sports related. It could be any sport. It could be music. It could be food. It could literally be anything. Ranking anything. This first week, these rankings will come out on Friday every week. This first week, we'll be ranking our top defensive back pairings in the NFL. We will both be doing a top five. And yeah, we're just going to be introducing the topic, and that'll wrap us up for each episode each week.
That's it. Go Scarlet Knights. Go Owls. Go Birds. Go Phils. Follow the TikTok. Follow the Twitter. Like and subscribe.
We are out on
Everything.
all platforms.
Every platform you could imagine.
This was an awesome
Not
first
every
episode.
single one.
Happy to do it. We'll see you guys next week.